we're going to get started. Good morning and welcome, and thank you for joining us. If I tell you just a little bit, I'm not the person with all the knowledge and all your answers, so I'm really just introducing the program. But this program has evolved because about 4 years ago, I took over the scholarship committee at Green Thumb Garden Club. And there wasn't any paperwork and how do you do this and whatnot. But they had been successfully giving scholarships for a number of years. But sometimes that information is in people's heads, and heaven's sakes, you know, at our age, maybe they die or move away, right? I mean, it's possible. So 3 of us, myself, Betty Wonderful White, and Debbie Michelle took over the committee, and we started writing procedures. We started figuring out how to go about it. But then I remembered the mother of all scholarships, GAIL Baker, with Valparaiso. She has been very successfully running the scholarship program at Valparaiso Garden Club. So I quickly got in contact with her. She started sending us information, and then we really started rolling. Then I've watched this occur the last few years and realized that some of the garden clubs give scholarships, some don't know anything about it. And I thought, okay, now it's time to share the information across the board. So all the garden clubs are entitled to this information, but feel free to take the information and go on with it to the next level. I spoke with Lee Vanderpool, president of the DESTIN Garden Club. He's sitting here. But yesterday I was in the Okaloosa County Master Gardener meeting, and I'm thinking scholarships because today's coming up. And I'm looking at their bank balance, 20 grand, $20,000 in the bank. I'm thinking, gosh, these people should be giving scholarships. But you go ahead and think about the other groups that you belong to. Maybe you belong to a Rose Society, a Bonsai Society, a Camellia Club. You can take this same information to the next group and start implementing scholarships. My personal goal is get the money in the hands of our young people. They are the next generation. I wish they'd all become farmers, but perhaps they're going to become marine biologists. If you look at the Ffgc guidelines, you will realize it's a broad scope of all the environmental issues that Ffgc supports. So it's not just someone going to get a horticulture degree. So broaden your perspectives about potential students, areas to help the earth, broaden your perspective about where else you could implement these same ideas or pass this information on. All right, enough of the introduction. Now, let me introduce our 2 presenters. GAIL Baker of Valparaiso Garden Club, I mentioned earlier, the mother of all scholarships. And this is Debbie Michelle with Green Thumb Garden Club. When I told you that 4 years ago we were on the committee, okay, she has chaired the committee since my 1 year of chairing it, and she's taken it to a completely different level. So these are the experts, and I'm going to turn the program over to them. GAIL is not my mother. Nor could she be.
Just to start off with maybe a funny thing, and that is there's one word that I never answer to, and that is mother. Okay, so anyway, we are going to sort of look at our slides here, and you're going to look at them there. So I'm not sure if you're going to see what.
Are you ready for the first slide?
Oh yes, I am. Okay, I've been in charge of the Valparaiso Garden Club Scholarship Program for the last 5 years. And this was a very nice scholarship, $3,000. However, Valparaiso Garden Club only gave $1,000, and the Greater Fort Walton Beach Camellia Society, which no longer exists, they gave us $2,000. They had endowment money. They knew what they were phasing out, and they had endowment money, and so they used it up by giving us this money. But funding from them ended in 2022. So one of my goals, of course, is to find more money. Okay. Our situation is a little bit different from Green Thumb. I've been involved for the last 5 years, and in the last year or two, we've had gay vaults, and both of us feel that we have backgrounds that are suitable for people who can, decide. I do want to say one thing, and it's not on the slide, and that is that the first couple of years, Mary Lee Morris, who is a former president of our club, she was my co-chair, so to speak, and she was a retired math teacher, and we really had a lot of fun together. We had a lot of applicants those couple of years, and Mary Lee passed away about a year ago, so I just feel like she was great and wanted to mention her. We sent applications to 4 different colleges and universities electronically, and I'm not sure that had been done. I made contact with the financial aid staff of these places and then sent them the application, which they posted electronically again on websites or bulletin boards or whatever they do. These applications, I had 2 kinds, the kind you could fill out electronically and send in electronically so that we would really save a lot of trees, except I guess I printed them when I got them. Anyway, or the person could fill it in by hand. There was another version they could fill in by hand and either snail mail them to me or, again, scan them and electronically send them to me. The first year we did include high schools, but felt that it just wasn't worthwhile. So the schools that were involved were the University of West Florida, the University of Florida at Milton, Northwest Florida State College, and Pensacola State College at Milton. Next slide. Okay, the next slide just deals with what happened over the last 5 years. And obviously we were quite impacted by COVID, but the first couple of years we had 12 to 14 applicants. We would interview the first 2, and then Mary Lee and I would choose the person. We only had 2 or 3 applications in 20 and 21 because of the pandemic. And I think in those cases, I may have just chosen the person. The 6 applications we got in 2022, Gay Baltz and I looked at them, and then together we chose the person. I do want to say that most of the applicants between 2020 and 2022 were from the University of Florida at Milton. And I'll mention that in a minute or two. The academic recruiter, who is now Dallas Brooks, used to be Mark Long, but they helped us to select the winners because they knew these people. And another thing that I don't think I said was we always picked someone who was a plant person. Even though we did interview, in one case, I remember a person who wanted to be a herpetologist. That's fine, but we felt since we got 2/3 of our money from the Camellia Society that we better stick with plants. But as Joyce pointed out, there's a lot of different things that people can major in that we're still, as Garden Club members, interested in. So all of our successful applicants in the 5 years came from the University of Florida at Milton. Next slide. Okay, I just felt like maybe some people don't even know about the University of Florida at Milton, but I know probably most of you do, but I just wanted to say a little bit about it. It is a branch of the IFAS, the Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences for the university, and it is known as the West Florida Research and Education Center. It is a senior university, so you have to have gone to your freshman and sophomore years, or maybe been a junior college graduate in order to attend. They have no, underclassmen, so to speak. It's very small with just 60 to 70 students. On-site classes include real-life laboratory and field experiences. The faculty are doing research. They're involved with a lot of other people, and they provide direct interaction with local, regional, and even national business and government agency leaders. One of our students, I think the very first one who got the scholarship, had done some research at Bon Secours National Wildlife Refuge, which is in South Alabama, planting milkweeds, for example, for the monarch butterflies. They have undergraduate programs in plant science and natural resource conservation, and each of those areas have subdivisions, so to speak, and including things like forestry, wildlife management, and so on. I do have some things out there. I have a lot of information about UF Milton, and you may look at that. One of their things, soil science, another one is agroecology, and so on. So that's, we love them, and they love us. Okay, I think Debbie's next.
When Joyce told you how I kind of got started on the scholarship path, and had served on a lot of committees, but I never had been responsible for a scholarship. So it, like Joyce says, do something new. That was kind of what I thought I was getting into. And right at that time, Green Thumb Garden Club, who I'm a member of, had gotten the 501c3 designation. So along with that, they determined that we had to have all of our policies for all committees in writing. So it was a perfect time to really kind of fine tune the procedures of the scholarship, the policies and procedures. And just thinking about what our board, the approach is to have a fair and consistent process that the committees follow, and then the support teams, the members also follow and are aware. It's very transparent what we do. Now, being a 501c3, I don't want to get into that rabbit hole, but it does take more oversight and documentation than other clubs. So don't think you have to be one of those to give a scholarship. As far as the committee, Joyce and Betty and I started as the committee. Before that, they really hadn't had a committee. It had been really just one or two people. And so we then expanded that to really include some more people, only because we are a pretty big garden club, and we're also, Walton County is pretty big with a lot of very active people, and we wanted to get the word out. The one thing that differentiates, one of the few things that differentiates us from ValP scholarship is we require the student to be tied in some way to Walton County. Either they live in Walton County or graduating from Walton County High School, or their parents are in Walton County. So it puts a little bit more of a challenge on us to, and different from GAIL, we do have to include high schools, because then we know they're Walton County if we include the 5 high schools. And most of my applications last year were from high schools. They were all seniors going off to college. So what our committee does is we have met for this coming award, and we divided up the resources like the colleges, the high schools. But I also started a list of resources, other organizations. Someone on our committee is in charge of the Beach Ambassador program in Walton County. What a great fit to try to find a student who's going to work in environmental science, or our last year's candidate was going into marine biology. We thought she was a great candidate. The one we had before was, and he is now working on his PhD in forestry. He goes to Auburn. So what the committee, so we're now all ready to get the word out with our applications. We spent quite a bit of time revamping this year with our application so that it's a fillable form. And you think that's easy? You just have to have the program, the Adobe program. And yeah, go ahead. Well, I got one more thing to say on that. Yeah, I'm jumping ahead. But just to say, we changed our materials, and then the next time we meet, we'll be ready to vote. We don't really only needed the 2 meetings, I think, and do a lot over email communicating. So our guidelines have been approved by the board of directors, and then we have a person that writes our press releases. She's already written a press release, and then we have she's the same person, happens to be that's our treasurer, and the treasurer's in the loop because the money always needs to come follow the guidelines for disbursement of money, and it goes directly to the school. Okay, it's going to talk about that later. Next slide. Okay. So when 3 years ago, GAIL, Joyce and I went around, or we went to high schools, we went to colleges to meet these people, the counselors. It's a little difficult because their time is valuable, as you know, but it sure has helped, I think, and they know who we are, and it's a lot easier when you're emailing and calling them for them to take your call or really read your email. So that's being done now, really more email. But also, when I mentioned the community leaders, I've asked our members they're all involved. We're all very active people in the community. So we all are involved in other things. To send the application to other organizations as well, because someone knows a student at church. They may know someone at their grandchild's school. It's more the word gets out. We also have, it's labor intensive, but it's not as bad. It's just getting the time to do it, sit down and do it, and go through all the schools and find the science teachers. I found that's a good resource, not just the counselors, because the counselors have a lot of scholarships. They're trying to get these kids off to college. And I think the biology teachers, it's interesting to see when you look at the high schools, what they're teaching, because it's changed. A lot of it has changed. And some courses, they had the initials, I didn't even know what they meant. So it's good to know what's being taught out there. And there are a lot of county environmental leaders, as I mentioned with the Beach Ambassador program, but not all counties have. But those are the people you want to reach out to, 4-H and Biophilia Center that we have up in Walton County. They're in the loop with us. And basically, all my network of friends, I've sent the application out to, because, and even my hairdresser, her son is going to start at landscape business. I said, let him apply if he's going to be taking some courses to get that business going. So it's, you just never know. Also the thing that I found last year that got the most attention was social media. We posted a notice, and this year we made, do we have that slide? Well, we'll show it in a minute. It's a we're calling it a flyer, and it's just a pretty little flyer that says, talks about our scholarship. Just something quick to post on Facebook pages or Instagram, or I posted it in my neighborhood because we have about 600 homes in my neighborhood. So I posted it there. That got attention. Believe me, the parents are looking at social media, and the parents are catching this. Because I asked every student, how did you find out about our scholarship? And several said my mother. So the parents have an interest in this. You have to remember that. It's not just the students. They just think the money grows on trees, right? And then, let's see what else. One of our members has gone and set up a booth at the farmers market in South Walton at Grand Boulevard. They get a lot of people in there on a Saturday, and they have set up there and suggested that we tout our scholarship there. What a great place at a farmer's market. So there's lots of ways to get the word out. That's things you don't have to do, but you'll get a feel. If you're not getting a lot of applications, then you need to do more. That's kind of what we thought. This is the flyer that's on the screen. Okay.
That's a terrific flyer.
It helps to have good people, technology people that are in the loop, for sure. That's made the biggest difference in our application and our PR, if you will. And I made a point of putting the deadline for our application on everything possible. The deadline and the Walton County requirement and the fields of study. Those are the three main things. As far as anything else, grade point, that's not necessary when you're just trying to get their attention. If they're not good students, and they'll know to look for the grade point requirement to apply for a scholarship. Okay, you want to talk about application?
Yes. Next slide, please. I see everybody taking notes, but if you really want this, there's only a few slides. We can email you the whole PowerPoint. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're patent applied for.
And you do have choices with PowerPoint. You can do one slide per page, or you can do 6 slides per page, or 4, I think. So, but if you don't know how to do that, we can include instructions on this. Okay, we're here to talk about, and we call them electronic applications, because this is kind of something new, I think, at least in the last 20 years, but maybe it took a little longer for the garden clubs to catch up. What I did here was just write the introduction to our application, and that sort of says, well, these are the people who can apply, all right? So the scholarship is to attend a Florida college, university, or technical school. It's offered to a college student who is a Florida resident and U.S. citizen. It is a tuition and fees scholarship only, and the funds will be sent directly to the school. This student must be majoring in, botany, ecology, horticulture, forestry, landscape design, environmental studies, biology, or a related field. The applicant must have a B or 3.0 grade point average and plan to enroll as a full-time student. And then down at the bottom, I have a couple of changes, and that is, as Debbie mentioned, Green Thumb prefers students who live in Walton County or their parents live in Walton County. And they also, their GPA requirement is a little lower at 2.5. Okay, can I have the next slide? Oh, that's on my side. Okay, this is the Green Thumb letter that goes with the application. And you can have a copy of that too. Okay, next. And this is the Green Thumb application. And as she said, it is fillable. I didn't use that word, but that's the way ours is too. In other words, you just click or whatever, and you can write in on the application on your computer.
And Gail, I just like to interject, the young people going to school, they're all about the internet, and they're not into filling out a form of paper, and, then they're like, scan it and send it to you, are you kidding? I want to fill it out online, so.
Well,
you gotta think about going to where they are, and meeting them where they are.
the only obstacle is the signature. We do not yet have that. We're still working on that, but we're just moving ahead with sending what we've got now. The signature does have to be, they do have to print it, sign it, and scan it. We put that on our instructions because there's just a lot more involved in trying to get an electronic signature. So we aren't there yet. We're still working on that.
So this is done with the Adobe software?
Yeah, and I don't know which one. It's is it Acrobat or is that a separate? I'm not sure. It's an Adobe. I know that. It's not just Adobe
When you
Reader.
talk about Adobe, this form that created it, Adobe, a person filling it out has to have an Adobe app on their computer. But don't worry about that, because these schools have it for the kids. The kid might not have it at home on their laptop or whatever they're using, the school has it.
Joyce, actually, that we clarified that they do not have to have it. They don't have to complete the form because I completed one just as a test and I don't have Adobe, so they can complete it, which is if you've ever filled out a form that's not fillable, it gets all screwed up and it's frustrating and you might quit. So I was glad to hear that Bobby had that.
I don't know about ours because it's not Adobe and it looks it's the same, but it doesn't have all those lines, but it is fillable and I think it's just in Word. And I do the same thing for the Pioneer Day people because I do that at Rocky Bayou and they can just click and fill it in. So, but again, I didn't invent the form, somebody else did.
So when you invented the form, did someone attach it to the website?
That's okay. I'm really glad you're asking because we've had to learn our way with this too. Right now, the form on our website is just the printable, I'm calling it the printable version. We have a very sophisticated website, Green Thumb does. So we couldn't get it in time for this year. I wanted to get this fillable form out and not wait on it to be sitting on the website. So this year on the website, it's the printable version. What we email out is the fillable version. And that will just take some additional programming in it, and it might cost us some money too, that we may or may not decide to do it.
What can I say? We don't require a signature, so we just don't, so we don't have that thing to jump through. We just do it all basically by email. But believe it or not, Joyce, I have received handwritten ones in my mailbox, a few.
All of
In
them, all of the ones we had last year, except for two, I think, were handwritten. And believe me, kids don't know how to write.
So you pick the top few and then you interview those ones?
We're gonna talk about that in just a minute on the selection, yeah.
Okay, can we move to the next slide? Okay, these are just application requirements, and some of those were actually in that introduction. So we just need name, address, and contact information, a place to fill in your years in Florida, whether or not you're a U.S. citizen, the college or university of enrollment. And I presume that for a high school, you would say the college or university that you hope to attend or something like that. The student number, you have to have a student number to give the money to the school. So current source of financial aid, that does not include loans, but it can include things like Bright Futures, Pell Grants, and so on, that are money. A loan has to be, paid back, obviously. The Department of Enrollment, the major field of study, and then the person's status for the coming year. Since we don't do high schools, it would be, are you going to be a junior or graduate student? I suppose a freshman at a community college or state college, they could apply as well, of course. The last two schools attended, the degree and date if applicable, because again, a lot of people already have a community college degree, and one or two of our applicants have actually have a bachelor's degree in something else, but then they decided to change what they were interested in. The total credit hours completed at the end of the semester that they're filling out the form, the grade point average, expected graduation expected graduation date, an essay explaining why they chose their major and what their career goals are. And then the schools require us to put in a privacy policy statement. Next slide. I like small words, so my title here is "Where does the money go?" and what is it for? And this is the ValP example. But it's the same for you too. The scholarship is for tuition and fees only. The funds are sent directly to the school, not to the student. Every school has donor guidelines, and I do have a few copies of the donor guidelines from the University of Florida over here. I think there's 4 copies. And so you can pick one of those up, or you can email it to you. The University of Florida donor scholarship guidelines include the student's full name and, of course, their student number, specific information about what the funds are for and when they should be given must be in the transmittal letter. And we're going to have the next slide. If not, those funds will be, if you say it's for tuition and fees, they will give them the tuition and fees for the first year and then hand them a check for the rest. And I'm sure our students would never, buy a car with the remainder or whatever, but there's a lot of potential for abuse if they get cash. So not our people, but others. So that's why we do this. So anyway, I have an example of a transmittal letter also. Okay, can we go back a second to that? Because I think I said something without looking at this slide. Yeah, I guess I did. All right, so I'm done with that, and now we're back to Debbie.
Okay, the fun part is the selection process. And that's, to me, is the reward for doing all the hard work. Our deadline is April 30th. And it's a very quick turnaround for us because our club likes for the candidate or the winner to come to our May meeting. So we pretty much have to have as soon as we get it's not that big a deal. It's not like we have 100 applications coming in, for the deadline. So we get the applications together, the committee meets, and early May it will be, and select the winner. Because I had 12 last year, I made a spreadsheet and kind of clicked off the grade point, all the components of it. And then what I also did was probably not all 12, but because I had a couple of dentists in there majoring in biology, so that kind of, I knew they weren't going to hit the top group. But I did contact every applicant and to verify at that point, they might have submitted the application in February. So I wanted to make sure they were still going to where they said they were going. Not that it mattered. Our kids can go, or students can go anywhere in the country. So it's not, they don't have to just go to forest schools. But did they move out of Walton County? That we have to verify. And then the grade point average, really, every applicant had well over a 3. Some had 4.0s, the ones that applied. So the only reason we dropped the grade point to 2.5 was when we weren't getting very many applications. I just thought it might open it up to a student that is still a good student, still is hitting our mission, but just might have had some C's in college, and it brought it down. So to me, it's kind of a moot point. So we go over, so we meet, go over make sure they meet the criteria, and then before that though, vetting the grants that they might be getting, the scholarships, like GAIL said, the Bright Futures. And that got a little tricky for me in several cases because most of them were high school students, seniors. I was in touch with the parents. The student put me in touch with the parents because my mom knows all that stuff. And because the letters are still coming in. So we did have to adjust some, but I didn't have any that had a full ride. So they all needed money, and that's what we care about. As far as vetting, that you could vet yourself to death, and you can't, we just had to make a decision. We can't keep, we have to trust them, what they put on the application, because we're not doing background checks. We're not doing, we don't ask for transcripts. I'm not saying that's a bad idea, but especially the students who've already been in college, that's one thing. But we haven't done that. We've just had this trust factor. And honestly, I was in touch with a couple of them at the school, just kept checking in with the counselor to say, we think she's in the top group, and is she in good standing, that kind of thing. And I think that's pretty much all we really need to do. And it doesn't hurt if you know the resource officer to also say, do you know this student? Because you don't want them to know that student. Resource officers are the police. So, but I'm not saying you have to do that either. Okay, then the other thing that we kind of do just naturally is put a ranking order to that. We know what we have to have. We have to have the Walton County. We have to have the grade point. And then from there, what else is most important? Is it important their major or what their end game is with their career? So you just, I think we all personally have got, a different thought on what's most important, but it really is a fun process, especially when you have a number of them to really look at and think about. We had the student that's working on his PhD, when we got to hit, was fantastic application when Joyce was leading this, that she actually met him and found him. And, but we looked at where his parents live, and we were like, oh no, they're not in Lawton County. So we called them while we were in the process at the meeting. Remember that, Joyce? And she said, oh yeah, we are Walton County. We pay taxes in Walton County, but our address is, I forget where they are, Paxton, I think. Yeah, so they're right on the border. So we did go, we wanted to make sure we had the right candidate, the right fit. So then what Green Thumb does is, once we've verified and submitted, what our board has asked is that their board is not approving the candidate. The board is approving the disbursement of the funds, and that's what's required with 501c3, that the board has to approve the disbursement of the funds. So the board just has to, I went to the board, and because I'm not on our board, and I went to the board and said, these, told them this was our candidate. I told them about her, that she had been selected, and that the committee was recommending that we give her the scholarship. So it was unanimous. But because we have all these, everything in writing, it's a trust with the committee that we've chosen the right candidate. Now, we did kind of put in something, if we find out our candidate all of a sudden is not going to school, or has already gotten more money than they need, then I would go back to the board and say, can I look at another candidate? And so we kind of have backups for that. And then we invited, this last year, the marine biologist, we invited her and both her parents, and her mom came to the meeting. Our members loved seeing that candidate. And I asked her, would she read her essay? And she was kind of quiet. Over the phone with me, she was pretty quiet about a lot of things. And so I called her mom, because I'd been in touch with her, and I said, if she doesn't want to read the essay, I understand that. But would you read it? And the mom said, she'll read it. So I think she did a beautiful job. I mean, and there were tears in the room. These essays that they write are heartwarming. Some, that wants to be a dentist, well, maybe not so much, but good for him.
It's really important for the scholarship winner and the parents to come to your meeting and see that presentation. Otherwise, your membership never really buys into the process. But once they see that student and the parent, they relate. Then they're totally into the whole program.
Yes, many of the members went up to this scholarship winner and told her congratulations. We gave her, a bouquet of flowers. Why not? A garden club, right? And made a certificate. And I didn't bring my certificate, but I do have, and I can provide that too on an email, or just a sample certificate that we made. I mean, it's just, it's all about the graphics, right? And then I also gave her a little framed picture of some dolphins, and she was more excited about that, to put it in her dorm room. But you got to have your goal right in front of you. So that's all fun. And the only other thing that I wanted to mention is kind of going back to what GAIL said, and Joyce as well. The reason we do this is to get more students in what we're all passionate about, with the environment and gardening and plants, whichever direction we all have an interest in. But we don't want this to be, there are a lot of fields of study regarding the environment out there. And but with us being able to support them, we can, if that just helps one more student in the field, then, you know, kudos to us. So I mean, I think JOYCE, to be able to expand the scholarships in our district is great. I mean, we don't want to be the only ones, and neither do you.
Well, I'm not sure we can afford it anymore.
Well, I hope that Val P will not have to give up their scholarship, because every little bit helps. And I even said, you know, to Gail, I mean, we have the flexibility now this year. I did ask the board if we found 2 good candidates, could we divide it up and get $1,500 to each? I went to college on many $500 scholarships, because 100 years ago.
Yes. Don't remind us.
But it's not, I mean, when I saw what all they have, they piece it together. And a $500 scholarship is not bad. 3,000 is excellent, but 500 is, to me, that would be the minimum.
That is another change that we made, last year. Our guidelines said that it was a $3,000 scholarship. And then when we met to meet the candidates, we had 2 or 3 that were equally qualified. And I said, let's get them each, let's pick 2 of them and give them each $1,500. Well, we couldn't because of the way the guidelines said 3,000. So this year, Debbie changed the guideline to say up to 3,000. So we have 3,000.
Yeah, I feel like that was, I didn't, legit would be to say up to, and you want, the 3,000 gets a lot of attention, I can tell you that, because the counselors have told me that it's a generous scholarship. It's not, we're not talking about athletics here, we're talking about, so, where they get the big bucks.
I don't know what else to say, except that they do things a little bit, what shall I say, they're fancier than we are, okay? And we, previously, until last year, our deadline was pretty late. In other words, our deadline was May. And that was partly because people said initially, well, we're busy with final exams and stuff. I don't know what it was, but so we didn't even award the scholarship until June, until the beginning of the fiscal year for the state, which also worked out. And we did invite people to the meetings, but the first 3 people couldn't do it because we really wanted them to come at Christmas or something, and they were busy, and it was a long drive and so on. But the last 2 candidates did come, and last year I wasn't there, but we had an earlier deadline, and she did come to the May meeting, and apparently that worked out really well. And I think her mother was with her, maybe. The one before that, I think the person was a little bit older, but she came with a friend to a couple of meetings in the fall. And some of these students at the University of Florida at Milton are non-traditional, so they don't have parents really. I mean, they do, but they may be parents themselves. So you can't really invite the parent if the person is Our first winner was a 41-year-old beautician from Pensacola, and she had been a beautician for several years. I think she owned her own shop, but she wanted to be a planning oncologist. She's the one who did the milkweed planting at Bon Secours. So the thing is that you tend to focus on really younger people, but we've had people like veterans and not any retirees, but I know we had one last year who was a veteran. So anyway, I guess we're
I
done.
think in closing, one of the most important,
Do you want to sit
points to
here
make.
while you do that?
In closing, I just want to remind you all to share. Share your information, share your databases, share your money, Gail's reminding me. Last year, we had a wonderful story to tell. Debbie came across a student that didn't live in Walton County, but really needed the money and were very well qualified. probably the best qualified candidate we have. But because of green thumb, they had limit the people, the parents have to live in Walton County or the student has to live in Walton County. You know, that's a rule. But Debbie was able to place that student over in Panama City Beach. I mean, that was a wonderful story, a wonderful end. So as your clubs gear up and go find students, share the students, share the information, share the forms. The goal here is to get our young people in the fields of education that are important to us, which is all the environmental areas. Let's help make the next generation good caretakers of our earth. Okay, we're open for questions.
Actually, I have a comment. A suggestion rather. When you have your scholarship, can you notify the people maybe that didn't win and your winners? But there's also hopefully in the future a District 1 scholarship. There's also FFGC scholarship. There's also Deep South. There's also national. And just give them those links.
We should be
So
doing
then,
that.
you know, so you just got a little bit from here, but there's all these other scholarships that if you qualified for, you probably qualified for them too, to go ahead and look. You know, quick link to all the people who applied. You know, since they've applied and made that effort already, they might want to try these other ones. And then we're getting more of our local people getting some of the national and the district money and all that kind of stuff.
We did have one of our good candidates was a 4-H focused student, and so Joyce connected her, and I don't know if she got a scholarship, but we definitely passed her on.
That woman was going into cattle husbandry. But there are certainly cattle organizations and cattle ranchers in this area.
Our big research center is up in Quincy for beef cattle for this area, so.
So let's help get them to the right place.
And maybe a club that doesn't have the money, maybe a Belfry that doesn't have the money, you can still gear them to use NGC's money, you know, and just, you
That's
know,
very true.
gather your applicants and show them, you know, walk them.
When I was at the FFGC board meeting in September, and I hope I've got this right, the woman that was speaking, who administers the FFGC scholarship, said she had all this money, and when she got applications, you know, they wrote the check and sent it back. So there are big sources of money for a deserving student, besides Deep South, besides NGC.
And then they have to do the application, and they have to do the sorting, and they have to do the, but we get our people over there to apply for it.
Is it
Well-
NGC has a program as well?
And Deep South, which people always forget, the regional.
It wouldn't be a bad thing for the district to have one application
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm just-
and share the expense of any programming.
It's on my agenda.
Jenny Weber in the room right
I
there,
was
is the
gonna say,
incoming
that sounds like
director.
a
in
district
April.
trustee, doesn't it?
And we're going to be doing the district budgeting here in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, we are looking at ways to spend the money
And
that all the clubs contribute.
And that's a great idea, having the district set up that fillable form, so then I send it to you, and all you do is personalize it for your club, put in your extra little thing, but the district made a form for everybody so that you don't have to do all the technology, you know, that would be great.
Terrific. I don't think it
Are
would be
you
that hard.
volunteering?
I am gonna find people.
I don't think it would be that hard to even, pretty much, I mean, our application, we're different from Valp, but our applications are almost identical, except for just a few things, because the application itself doesn't say what the requirements are. It just is asking for data. So it's very, I mean, they're almost identical, but our deadline might be different, or the contact, of course, is different. So you'd have to have a section that would be unique to that particular, and the logo on it, of course.
And the deadline, saying, like you were saying that you had it in May and it was too late, and then, yeah, you skipped the end of the year. That was really helpful, to know that, you have it April 30th or April 15th, just to make
Well,
sure that
and
you have your choices and everybody can come to the May meeting.
I was pushing for a March 31st deadline, but I'll tell you why I changed it last minute. We were up at Northwest Florida at Niceville on the campus having our meeting last week. And so I met afterwards with the counselor up there, just while I was on campus. And I told her we changed the deadline. She said, "That's really early, Debbie." She said, "A lot of them are not getting their award," and this was for the college students. I'm not talking about high school students. But she said they're still getting their grant letters in March. So I just said, well, we need to go back to April 30th, even though it's a quick turnaround for us. If you know it ahead of time, you plan on it, and we want them to be able to come to the meeting.
Yeah, and for us, I don't think coming to the meeting was that important, partly because we did start out with our May 30th. I think that was for the
Yeah,
first
yeah, that
few
was-
years, it
we
was
did
like
do that, yeah.
May 30th or May 25th. But to me, that was okay. And again, we're dealing with college students, and I don't think we would change because we find them and they're great. And
But you could
Nobody
have them,
thinks.
you could have them at another meeting. That was,
that's what
And we
we
did do
tried to
that.
do if we could, but then again, some of these people can't drive from Milton or whatever to Niceville for a meeting in the morning. You know what I mean?
that is
So-
true. That is
So
true.
that was but we have had people come to the meeting, so that's okay. Anyway, are we done?
Are we done with the video?
Yes, I think we're adjourned. If you want to stay